Hello and welcome back to the Life School Podcast. This is your host, Jordan, and this week we're talking about district-wide PBIS. And this is going to be your multi-year guide to planning and implementing PBIS in your school district. Now, before we get going too far, let's make sure we ground this. If you're a school level leader, this is still going to be very useful for you. We're going to make some recommendations that are going to be very useful in your school building as well as the district as a whole. And if you're a district level leader or aspiring district level leader, maybe this is going to be extremely beneficial for you because we're going to talk about some of the benefits and some of the key touch points to getting PBIS going in your entire school, and in all the schools in your entire community. But, PBIS, or in some parts of the country, PBIS, what is it first? So let's start there, because this could be the first time you've heard the show. We talk about PBIS, ever so often here on the Life School Podcast. And I myself was a PBIS coach. I started a program at a high school, and the district I came from had a new initiative to implement PBIS in the entire county, in the entire district. And my school was a new school, so we started it there, and then it grew out from there. So I got a lot of experience on this topic specifically. So I think we can get some good insights for those of you, even if you already have a program. I think there's some valuable insights here. But first, for those that don't know, PBIS is a positive behavioral intervention and support system. It's a framework designed around these principles. 1, define and teach positive social and behavioral expectations for your school community. And this allows your students, staff, and parents to see what winning looks like in your building or in your district. 2, reinforce the positive behavior. The focus should be on what we want our students to be doing instead of what we don't. The idea there is, you'll get what you reinforce. So, for an example, instead of saying, in your building, no running in the hallways, use a positive frame around that, what you like them to do instead, such as, please walk in the hallways, or, please stay on the right, or voice levels and those kind of things. Those are very useful, and you tend to get more of what you emphasize, what you reinforce. Number 3, use data to guide decision-making. What does student behavior data tell you about what is working, and just as important, what isn't? That's going to be a very key aspect of making this work at the district level, and it's good. That's where your value is going to lie: consistency, and then the data collection and decision making you can make off of that. Number 4, provide evidence-based interventions for students who need additional supports. So, PBIS is a tiered approach, but some students are going to need more structure than others. So, as a part of supporting a community of schools, district personnel can provide training and resources to assist in the implementation at the school level, and they can provide some go-to interventions like check-in, check-out for those tier 2, tier 3 approaches. And we've talked about check-in and check-out before on the pod, and I can throw some links in there for you as well if you're new to that. Okay, so let's talk about what it isn't. It's a lot of things, has a ton of benefits. It's not going to solve all your problems. It's not a magic wand. Nothing is. You still going to need good practices just in your building aside from this. It's not going to make students magically behave 100% of the time. Be super nice if that was the case. Education probably be a lot better if we had that magic wand, but we don't. It's also not something that's done, in a silo, on an individual level. It's something that is a team, a community effort. As it's designed to be implemented for your entire school community. That means district personnel, school leaders, teachers, parents, and students. And also, just kind of touching some myths and perceptions. It's not just for elementary students at all. Like I said, I was a high school PBIS coach. I started a PBIS program at a large urban high school. So it works in all sorts of schools. You just need to adjust it for your population, for your kids, and for your teachers, by the way. But you need to show what winning looks like. And when you get there, you're reinforcing in a way that the incentives get you there again and again, to where what winning looks like at your school is the culture of your school. You have a culture where you win on multiple levels. Now, let's talk about this in a multi-year district implementation plan. And like I said, we'll touch on how this affects schools as well as we go. It can be a little bit of a complex system, and it's going to take time to implement and iterate and sustain. And you've got to change the culture of your district if this is totally new to you. And that's going to take some ongoing effort and dedication. But we're going to talk about kind of milestones you should get in year 1, 2, and beyond. So you can kind of see, all right, if we start here, this is what we got to do. And it's also good to keep in mind that you're not going to roll this out of the box and everything is great immediately. And that's where a lot of, schools and school systems kind of fall short of it when they try this. They expect it to be, the change to be immediate, and you're talking about gradual improvement over time. So let's talk about year 1. So if you want to implement PBIS year 1, here's what you should be targeting. Okay. So here's the areas you need to do. 1, we got to create the team. So you need a team at each of your schools that will serve as your tier 1 implementation team. This is going to be 5 to 6 staff members. They need to cover the various roles in your building. They're directly impacted by your school's culture, and different grade levels, different subjects, different roles in the building, that kind of thing. This group should be great at brainstorming and problem solving. And the better those individual school level teams are, is the better your program is going to be as a whole. Okay. So for that to happen, here's the second part. You got to train these teams. If possible, you can go to a trainer, find a school that has implemented the framework before, and you can also find one that's in the earlier stages of implementation that's going to provide you some valuable insights into potential pitfalls and lessons learned. But you need to train them on what they need to be doing, how to run effective meetings, how to look at behavior data, how to create expectations, those kind of things. And we got tons of resources I'll put in the description under the links that'll help you train your team. Tons of that stuff on the Live School website, on our blog in particular. Next, we're going to define success. I've used this term winning a few times already on this week's episode. But you need to define what that looks like in your school and your school community as a whole, and use data to support those claims. If you notice that more students are struggling during passing periods to follow expectations, what data can you collect to support what you're saying? That's something I found a lot of times, because you get really a kind of a siloed view from your own perspective. Like if you're a teacher working in a building that has a hallway that has some issues, you see that hallway's issues as the entire district's issues, if that makes sense. Does the data support that as being a focus? That's just kind of how it goes. The areas we feel are most concerned are the ones we experience every day. So like the lunchroom might be your biggest problem area, but if the folks that are on your PBIS teams, they never have lunch duty, they may not know this at all. So we need data to support claims. We need data to help us understand where students are struggling. Okay, next, keep this manageable. Determine a couple goals, 1 to 2, for your first year implementing the program. What is meaningful and manageable for your school? Knowing each year you'll add another 1 or 2 goals until your tier 1 is solid, and it has this a throwback to what the Ocho was, has a flywheel effect on your building. I would want that to happen before I really started working on tier 2 and tier 3 at the school level. It can be tempted to try to solve all the world's problems immediately, but also keep in mind the school level team, they're all teachers, they're administrators, they're social workers, they're counselors. They have other jobs other than this. So 1 or 2 goals is how you're going to keep this manageable. Next, set the schedule. Determine a cadence for the meetings on the school level teams. I'd recommend once a month. And for no more than 90 minutes. And I'd probably try to cut that in half to 45. Be respectful of folks' time. If you can make this happen during the school day, make it happen during the school day. But you want to allow time for conversations, problem solving, and action steps. So make it a habit of, this is the data we look at every week. We look for celebrations in this data. We look for things we can fix in this data. We look for troubles. Where are we struggling in the data? Make that a part of the meeting culture. So that's year one, and that's very manageable for everyone. Year 2 and beyond. So now you have a foundation, and it's time to take your program to a next level. This is where you want to look at things like community involvement. How can you get members of the community on into your meetings after that first year? Now, they may not be able to attend every one, but even if they're just at 2 or 3, when you're talking about behavior, and remember, we're not talking about individual students here, just so we're clear. We're talking about trends, overall percentages, that kind of thing. They can give you some insight on what's happening in the community. They can help you with incentives, all sorts of things, but you don't know until you ask them. And a lot of times, particularly if you're not from the community you're teaching in or you're leading, you may not understand how much they do want to help, and they just haven't been asked. So reach out to community leaders, reach out to local business folks, reach out to some parents that are involved, that they want to help, and you'll be surprised at how many yeses you get there. The next one is time to aim a bit higher. So let's add a few goals to what you had the first year, and make sure you got data to support those goals, and use a SMART goal system where the things you're looking at are specific and measurable and so on. And most of you have heard about SMART goals. Next, it's time to look at multi-tiered support. So it may be time to look at some across-the-board Tier 2 interventions that your district can offer and support. And that means train and provide support of. It could be small groups. It could be an interventionist. It could be a program like check-in, check-out, mentorship, all those kind of things. But pick something that at the district level we can support all schools in doing X, Y, Z. So those are all very manageable. Year 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then from there, you're talking about that flywheel process. You're gaining momentum, and then it starts building on itself, and you just iterate and you keep going, and things keep getting better. And by the time, kids cycle in and out of a school, a whole culture has been created around what you're doing, around positive behavior, around meeting expectations and exceeding them. But here's a few things I want to, lessons from my own implementation. And you hear this term like my why. In this case, you need to understand and share the why with your school community. So why are we doing this? What is this for? What is the goal? Do not make this another checkbox. Some people are going to feel very strongly that students should not be rewarded for doing what's expected of them. That's a valid concern, and it's one I understand, and in the back of my mind, sometimes I can empathize with. But we need to share the why behind what we're doing to help others understand the larger impact that your program can have on everyone. So, do you want to, dig your heels in the mud and say, I'm not rewarding what should be happening anyways, and then it just doesn't happen? Or are you okay with, the whole community getting behind some incentives and, kind of that rising tide lifts all boats idea that some incentives and motivation will be better for everyone. So also I would, have some end goals here and think a little bit farther out, 3 years, 5 years. Where do you want your district to be? Can you tie this into your long-term strategic planning? And lastly, as with any program, it's vital you recognize your team. The individuals that do the heavy lifting are going to be your school level personnel. Celebrate them, recognize them, reward them whenever you possibly can. If you can pay them stipends, I would certainly say you should do that. especially if this is going to be anything that's requiring any outside of school hour time, make sure you can provide some monetary compensation. And invest in your people. That really should go with anything you're asking school level folks to do. And invest in them, and you'll get the best out of this. All right, guys. So that is some 1, 2, 3 years or so plan for district-wide PBIS implementation. Those are all manageable. They're easy steps to accomplish. And I've got a bunch of more information that I'll put in the links on the description. Feel free to check those out. And we'll see you next week. Happy listening. Have a great summer, guys.